Hi everyone, good morning, it's Tanya and welcome to today's video. Today's video is going to be me reading The New Wilderness by Diane Cook. So the first part of the video is going to be a reading vlog, and then the second part of this video is going to be a review. So that's why if you're only interested in review, then please go to this timestamp. Here you will have a small summary first, and then after a few clips, review will start. If you just want to start with the review and you don't need the summary, then go here. So, if you're interested in the reading vlog, then just keep watching. For the reading vlog, I think I will take you today to a few maybe coffee shops and maybe to Shinjuku Koen, because I really want to go there and I have never been there, and I know that one of my favorite animation movies was based on Shinjuku Koen, like the place there, so I will take you along. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope I'm going to enjoy the book. I mean, I've already started it a little bit and I'm quite enjoying it so far, but I'm just like 50 pages in. So 50 pages were nice. Now I will continue reading and let's see what I feel about the book in the end.
Strangers in disguise. When the sun is going to stretch its arms on the road, turn us again with his shrill call into perfect strangers in disguise. But until then, forget that crazy world, yeah, until then, no need to say a word. We'll do our best to keep the sunlight from melting down the night. Plugging this food that's finally right.
Hi everyone. So I am currently in Shinjuku Koen, so Shinjuku Park. I'm here for the first time. I've never been here before. I actually really like it here. You have to pay a small fee to enter. Like I paid 500 yen, so it's approximately roughly $5. But it's so nice here and it's so clean, so much greenery. It's not very crowded. Some people are sitting on the lawn and some reading a newspaper. Children are running and playing, so it's very cozy here. I am currently in this small kind of place, sitting on my bench and I will read here. So I will sit and read here, and the park closes at around 4, so then I will have to leave. But I thought it's such a beautiful weather today and I decided not to sit in a coffee shop. I decided I want to be outside on the nature and read, so that's where I am. Look, I need to hold it so far. Beautiful, beautiful. So yeah, I am going to, I have my book, so I will read it here. It's going to be a beautiful time, Okay, I will start reading. cold sitting on my bench and I decided to go for a walk to warm myself up a little bit. And while I'm walking, I thought I would just tell you a little bit about the book. I haven't made a lot of progress. So far, I am enjoying it, but I don't really know where it's going so far. But it's interesting to read. For example, we're following a family who are living in the wilderness. And wilderness is like a separated piece of land which is designed especially for like a nature. It's like a forest, like a big forest, but it's kind of supervised forest and kind of tended forest, looked after forest, so it's not exactly like a wilderness because there are rangers who patrol it, there are rules that protect it, there are certain like even pipes installed in case of a fire happening there, so like the system would work and it would just, you know, extinguish the fire. So it's not exactly like a wild place, it's a protected wild place. And so our family with a few other people, they have like a small group of it. At first it was 20 people, now it's like around 15 because a few people died. They live there in this wilderness. They started living there because of some scientific experiment, like scientists wanted to learn how people interact with nature, and so they are basically participating in this study. Why our family is there is because the daughter of this family, she was very sick in the city. Apparently everybody in this world currently lives in this, it's like one big city, but it's very polluted, the air is very dirty, and it's too bad for children. A lot of children get disease, like lung disease, and that's what happened to our main protagonist's daughter. She was very sick, she was about to die. And so then our protagonist's husband, he learned about this experiment that was conducted and he suggested to participate. She didn't really want to go because in the beginning of this book she has this like torn feeling, like I don't want to go. Do I have to give up everything? Do I have to give up my life to save my daughter's life? So she's also torn because she loved her life in the city. She was a successful designer. Her husband was like a scientist also in the university. So they were very successful. But just to save her daughter, she decides to go. And so now they're in this wilderness, living in this group of people. So far, I don't really see where this everything is going. I feel like it feels like just the beginning of something, because they have to travel, they cannot stay put, they have to move from one place to another in order not to ruin the environment, in order not to leave a big footprint on the location that they're in. So they always have to move, and now they kind of have, they call them kind of guard posts, and they once in a while they have to visit this guard post because that's where they receive their mail, and that's where they get a kind of medical examination done on them to see how their body is doing. So they have always been once in a while visiting these guard posts, and now the last time they came they were told to go to like a different place where they have never been before. So now where they're going currently, that's where I'm at currently. We will see where it will go. I'm not sure currently where it's going, but it's definitely enjoyable to read. It's easy to read, it's interesting. Maybe for some people you could tell that it's slow because they're just going through this wilderness and, like, you know, to this south guard post. But I know, I just like the description of the relationship between people, because obviously the relationship in this small group isn't easy. There are some complicated people who want to be leaders, even though initially they decided that there will be no leaders among them. But of course some people still want to be leaders. So there are some interesting characters and relationship between characters, which, you know, I like. So far I'm enjoying this book, and we will see. So I think now I will walk a little bit more and then maybe go to a coffee shop to continue reading. Fun fact, by the way, I am currently in Shinjuku Koen, and if you know Makoto Shinkai, he is the animation director who made Your Name. animation Your Name. So he has another animation which is called Garden of Words, and so that garden in that movie was based off Shinjuku Koen. So interesting. Hi everyone, so I have finished The New Wilderness by Diane Cook and I am ready to talk about it now. I have some positive things to say about it and I have some negative things to say about it. Overall, my impression of the book is that it was definitely compelling. It was definitely very easy to read. Throughout the book, I personally always wanted to know what happens next, so I was engaged and it was interesting, it was entertaining. But at the same time, it left me unsatisfied and we will talk about it. I was disappointed with the ending and we will talk about it. I was disappointed with some other parts of the book which I very much anticipated, and I very much thought that what the book would be about. However, it wasn't, at least not for me. So on average, I thought that this book was nothing extraordinary. I don't know if Booker Prize worthy. I was just curious, is this book actually objectively better than The Mirror and the Light by Hilary Mantel? I was just reading this book and I was like, is it really better? Is this really objectively a better piece of literature than The Mirror and the Light? I haven't read The Mirror and the Light, so I haven't read the Hilary Mantel's trilogy, but I've seen a lot of people whom I respect and who recommend really brilliant books, absolutely adore that trilogy and enjoy the trilogy a lot. So I kind of trust their opinions, and they praised the whole trilogy and the last book so highly. That's why I am just curious. Like, how come? But okay, let's assume that the committee wanted to promote new voices and debut authors. So let's just put that question aside. Let's talk about the book itself. I will start with things that I didn't like about the book, so we would finish on a positive note. In the end, I will talk about things which I liked and I thought that were actually done well in this book, which there were such things, because obviously I enjoyed reading it. I really did enjoy reading it. There were also some things that I didn't like and in my opinion were not fulfilled, that didn't fulfill my expectations at least. So the first expectation that I had of this book, because I often heard people describing it this way, people describe it as an environmental novel, environmental piece of writing, and to be honest, to me it wasn't. Because you would think that in an environmental novel the world would be a very big part of the novel, like all the events that are happening in the world and how the world is working, how is everything organized, how it affects lives of many people. So you would expect the world to be a big part of the novel and the world building in the novel to be done well. In this novel, however, practically I personally thought that there was no world building. I mean, very little, just very superficial. We only know that there is the city and the wilderness. We know that probably somewhere there are so-called private lands, which are throughout the whole novel are just like a legend, and some people believe in them, some people don't believe in them. But basically private lands are lands for the rich people. We know that the city is super polluted, it's super dirty, it's overpopulated, it is polluted to the level of children dying because they cannot breathe the air. And that is pretty much the world building that you get. There is nothing really else. Yes, in some, like in one sentence, page 80, I will even tell you where it is. Page 80, on the very top, she refers to the heat belt. So that's like the piece of land that is too hot for people to live in. The fallow lands, which I'm not sure what it means, and the new coast, which basically, like, you know, the global warming happened and water raised in the oceans, and so the new coast appeared. So, but it's a one sentence on page 80. That's pretty much it. That's the world building you get in this book. There is nothing explored about these things. There is nothing about life in the city, like how it works. You only know that it's very polluted, very dirty, many people cannot live there, and they just run away. And you learn that, like, with time the situation gets worse, literally. Like, that's it. Nothing else. And like, you would think that with, you know, with the book that is trying to talk about the environment, you would get more. You would see how it affects people. Basically, the only effect that we see in this book is the climate refugees. People who run away from the city into the wilderness. That's it. And children dying from dirty air. Those are like two effects that are mentioned in this book. So I got curious, like, just about the author. What was her idea of the book? What did she want to do with this? Maybe she didn't really intend it to be a climate change book. Maybe she didn't want to write like about environment. So I went on the internet and I found one of her interviews. I will put the picture, the screenshot of the part that I want to talk to you about here. There was an interesting question where the interviewer asks the writer, in considering a world ravaged by climate change, what kind of research did you do? The answer got me thinking, like, well, it shows. So basically her answer is, our current news gave me all the information I needed to imagine what might have taken place. So basically no research, just watching the news and imagining things. Like, that's it. Like, no, you know, like there is climate science, like there are people, like actual scientists who are studying climate and climate change, and of course there are studies, I'm sure there are studies that discuss possible aftermath of climate change and how it will affect us. Apparently she didn't look for those. Apparently, like, imagination was enough. And I get it, like, I get that it's a fiction, I get that it is an imagined story, but then it talks about climate change, a very real thing, and you would want to get something more complex as a result than just, hey, it will be too hot, the water will rise, and the world will be overpopulated. Like, everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. You don't need to reiterate it. Why not to go deeper? Why not to find something more? And this book, in my opinion, haven't done that. Also, I didn't like how one-sided it was, because personally it seemed to me that, like, Diane Cook, she only thought about, like, the climate, she only thought about the environment, like changes in the environment, and in imagining this future world that would be after the climate change. She didn't even consider development of science, she didn't consider development of technology, she didn't consider development of medicine. Actually, in terms of medicine, I was very much surprised. So the book said that, like, since the world is so overpopulated, basically doctors don't treat people anymore, because apparently it's the only way in this world to control the number of population, which is apparently even not very effective because the city is still overpopulated. So yeah, and medicine isn't treating anyone anymore except for maybe like rich people. And I thought, like, it's ridiculous. Like, nobody would throw away out of the window the whole development of medicine just to control the population. I don't think that it's like, I disagree with that. I don't think that it's what's going to happen. Also, she didn't consider the development of human rights sphere. I feel like there would be progress in that. I don't think that, you know, people will just abandon each other, and, you know, there will be rich people who are living a wonderful life, and there will be poor people or middle class people who cannot afford doctors and stuff like that. I feel like eventually there would be improvements in technology and in medicine and in human rights and in everywhere. So I don't know, this book just felt very one-sided to me, because again, there wasn't any world building really here. Also, I didn't like how everybody felt so compliant in this novel. Society in general felt so compliant with the situation. No, there were no mentions of uprisings, of people protesting, because again, you would think that if everything is so terrible and if the city is so unbearable for living, people would rise and people would, you know, go on protests to protect their rights. And nowadays you can see people doing this. In America, people protesting. In Korea, people changed their president by protests. So when the need comes, you can see people raising and changing stuff. And in this book, even though the situation is so terrible, everybody is just living with that. Everybody is okay with that. Nobody is trying to change it. And again, I don't think that that's plausible. I don't think that that's realistic. So that's also what I didn't like about this book. I feel like it just looked at one side of things, and it didn't take into consideration so many other things that would also be in the society, such as science and medicine and technology and society as it is, people and their reaction to this thing. So that's also what I didn't like. Everything was overly simplified. This whole book felt overly simplified, and didn't like that. Wasn't a fan of that. Now to the characters. There is only 3, maybe? I would say maybe 3, maybe you can say 4, but not really. More like maybe even 2.5 characters that are like genuinely interesting here. Okay, let's say it like 3.5. Like, I'm talking about Bea, so Beatrice, the mother, Agnes, the daughter. They're main characters. They're interesting. Of course, they're complex. I personally thought that they were written well. I also liked the character of Carl. So this was like the guy who wanted to be the leader, but again, he was interesting in his drive to be the leader, and I just felt like he very much wanted to be interesting, but at the same time he was just that. Like, he wasn't a complex character. He didn't change. Carl is Carl in the beginning, it's the same Carl in the end. Glenn, the Bea's husband, I also liked him. I thought Glenn was also an interesting character. So let's say, like, because Carl like is the half, so like 3.5 interesting characters. The rest of the characters very insubstantial. They're very much unimportant. They are like just there for the crowd and, you know, maybe sometimes create some discussion or create some complication. All the other characters aren't really interesting. And the funny thing that I also found about one particular character, which I also thought like so ridiculous, is the character of Jake. So Jake is Agnes's love interest, the boy from the newcomers, whom she eventually calls her life mate. Did she call him soulmate? Did she call him like life mate? Some kind of mate she called him. They decided that they're like mates, life mate. Jake, being the side character, wasn't like really developed. We don't know anything about Jake. Jake is like, you know, nothing is there about Jake. But the funny thing about Jake is that he's only there when Agnes is experiencing sexual needs. Like, because we follow Agnes from her childhood to like her adulthood pretty much, and of course, like, you know, all the changes in the body happen, period starts, we go through all of these things. She grows into like a woman, and of course she needs a man, and so whenever she needs a man, Jake is there. Jake is like, here I am. But when Agnes is going through some other things, when it's not about her sexual life and it's not about her wanting a baby or just wanting to like experience that part of life, Jake is not even mentioned. Like at some point of the book I was just reading and like, where is Jake? I wonder what is Jake doing? Because there was like a huge chunk of book where he was just not mentioned, and before that Agnes was referring to him as her soulmate and as her life mate, and then suddenly Jake just disappears for like a huge chunk of the novel, and I'm like, so much for your life mate. Like he's just not there. So yeah, basically Jake is only present when Agnes is experiencing some sexual drive, then he's present right there. As soon as Agnes is done with that, Jake disappears. So I thought that was funny. That was just like ridiculous to me. I really didn't like that aspect. Also, another thing, I feel like pretty much everybody is heterosexual here, so a man and a woman, a man and a woman, or a single. Except maybe for Deborah. Deborah is like one of the characters in the group, but she's a side character and we don't know much about her. It's just that like in one sentence somewhere in the book, I didn't mark it for myself, so I don't know, like I don't remember which page it is, but I remember there was one sentence which like referred to Deborah as like after losing her wife. And I remember that sentence because I read it like a few times to make sure that I understand it correctly, because I was so surprised to figure out that Deborah had a wife. I was like, huh? Really? I didn't know that. And like it was somewhere already in the second part of the book, so I was surprised to see that because it was never mentioned before. Or like maybe I didn't catch it, maybe I didn't see it, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it wasn't mentioned before. So when I read after Deborah lost her wife, I was so surprised. But again, it was just one sentence, and later on Deborah meets a guy and she's very much interested in the guy. So again, heterosexual relationship. Is there a gay representation? I wouldn't say that. I haven't noticed. I personally haven't noticed. I would love an author also to like clarify this. Like, who are these characters actually? What is this community? And yeah, everybody is heterosexual, so I feel like it's definitely a drawback for this book, because if we are in the future, gay community is a big community in the world currently, and you would think that in the future it would be even bigger and it would be hopefully more accepted and would become more common. This book just doesn't really like include that. Everybody is heterosexual here pretty much, so that's, I feel like, is also a minus for this book. The last thing that I really didn't like in this book was the ending. In my opinion, the ending, like the epilogue, it's first of all, like the ending, like the whole ending felt very rushed to me. It was, everything happened like very fast, literally on like a few pages. It was too fast for me. And then the last like 7 pages, like epilogue, how many pages? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. The last 7 pages of this book devaluated everything that was said in here. They practically devaluated the whole novel. It devaluated the whole novel, and it made the whole novel pointless. It made the whole novel feel like a big exaggeration, because basically, I will spoil now, so if you don't want to know what happens in the end, if you haven't read the book yet and you want to read it, skip this part, go to this timestamp, because I will spoil like the ending now. So basically, in what happens in the ending, Agnes and Fern go to live in the city in the end. And what happens in the city? Nothing happens. Nothing happens. Throughout the whole book, the city was described as a place not appropriate for living, as a place that is impossible to live in, as a place that people are running from, place where people are dying. And then in the end of the novel, they arrive in that city and nothing happens to them. Nothing happens to them. They're fine. Children are fine. Fern is fine. That other boy whom Agnes thought was son of Val in her apartment complex, he was, I mean, there wasn't like much told about him, but apparently he was also fine. So even children were okay. And then Fern is described like she is herself. She is curious. She is as curious as she was in the wilderness. So like everybody is okay, which to me creates an impression that everything that was said in the book before about the city was just one big exaggeration, was not true, was false. City isn't that bad for living, city isn't that terrible for living, children are fine, adults are fine. But the whole book was only written and was only possible based on the assumption that the city is not appropriate for living anymore. That's why people are running. That's why people don't want to live there. That's why they run into the wilderness. And in the end, we learned that city is not that bad apparently, because Agnes is okay. Agnes is okay. Fern is okay. Everybody, like, nothing happened. Nothing. And like I was just, what were they running from then? This whole book they were running, not the whole book, but like especially in the end, when the rangers are telling them that we will bring you back to the city, and they don't want to go back to the city. They, you know, the whole calamity happens and everybody is separated and everybody runs away and everybody is terribly afraid of going back to the city. What was it for then? Because apparently city is not that bad. So the ending was very disappointing to me. I thought it just completely like just crossed and negated and made the whole book feel pointless and as one big exaggeration. So that was my feeling about the ending. I really didn't like it. I feel like she really didn't give much thought to the ending, and she just wanted to finish her novel, and that's how she finished it. So nobody would get hurt. Nobody would get hurt, everybody would survive, and everything would be fine. But with this book, it's not supposed to be fine. With this topic and everything that was said about the city, it's not supposed to be fine. So that was one more thing that I didn't like. Another thing that I didn't like was that it is connected to the topic of absence of the world building. We don't really see the city. We don't see the city, we don't see anything apart from the wilderness. We don't really know what is there. It's always only talked about, it's told to us, but it's never shown to us. Actually, we don't know what the city is like. We don't know what the life there is like. We don't know what the society is like currently. We know nothing. We know nothing apart from the community and apart from the wilderness. I wanted things to be shown to me. I didn't want to hear them in a fable-like manner. I wanted to see through the eyes of the characters in real time. So that was also disappointing. So these were my problems with the book. In general, I feel like they are pretty big problems, to be honest, and I don't feel like this book left like a significant impact on me, that it would be particularly memorable for me in the future, that it's going to stay with me. To be honest, I am currently not even thinking about it anymore. Like, I finished it and like, sometimes you finish a book and you just keep coming back to it in your thoughts and thinking and rethinking. It didn't happen with this book for me. I feel like it speaks volumes already. And okay, so now let's talk about positive things and things that I liked about it, which is, I guess, one thing that I liked about it. Okay, two. I like two things. First thing being Bea and Agnes and their relationship as mother and the daughter. I feel like their relationship was portrayed and was written so well as these two characters. I feel like Diane Cook has really done a very good job writing these two characters, because both of them are flawed. Both of them have very distinct, they're very distinct personalities, and you can really see the conflict between them and how they don't understand each other, how they don't get each other sometimes, but at the same time how much they're drawn to each other, how much they love each other. And of course it would be there in the relationship of a mother and a daughter, but at the same time there would be this disagreement, especially when the daughter grows up and becomes a teenager. That's what everybody faces in their families. So I really liked that their relationship was so difficult, and it felt very, to be honest, like it felt very realistic to me, because obviously the mother, she grew up in the city and the daughter grew up in the wilderness. Mother is constantly remembering her life in the city and she misses it so much. She loved her job as a designer. She didn't want to go to the wilderness. At some point in the book, when her husband Glenn suggests her, when Agnes was sick and small, he says that, like, there is this study, we will live in the wilderness, the air is good there, it will save your child, it will save our child. Well, Agnes wasn't really like his biological daughter, but he loved her and he considered her his daughter, so that's why I'm saying like our child. At the same time, like, Bea was thinking to herself, like, do we have to give up our lives? Because obviously she understands that it's dangerous, it's the wilderness, the life isn't going to be a piece of cake, and there are wild animals, there are so many dangerous things there. She understands that they might die, and she thinks to herself that do we have to give up our lives to just save hers? And this is so realistic. I definitely like agree with that, and I liked that portrayal. I liked that this book was honest in terms of relationship between people, human nature, this survival instinct. It was very honest, because later also, when Diane Cook describes the life of the community in the wilderness, she talks that yes, they leave people behind. If somebody is injured or if somebody is dying and they need to move, they leave the person behind to die. And for like us civilized people, of course it's awful and it's like terrible and it's unacceptable, but when you think about animals, you know, living in the wild, they also leave the weak behind, and usually the weak get eaten by a predator. So like it's very common in the world of the animals. I see where it comes from, and I agree. I feel like it would be also present in human community living in the wilderness. So, and I like this honest and just straightforward portrayal of such things. I really appreciated it. And same goes for Bea and for her thoughts. It shows that she isn't only a mother who like sees herself as this, like, you know, the mother of the daughter. She sees herself as a autonomous human being who has her own interests and her own agendas. And yes, she loves her daughter, but she also loves herself, and you know, she's torn because she has to give up her life for her daughter and everything that she loves. So I really like that. At the same time, Agnes, like any teenager, when she grew up and when she saw what her mom was doing in the community when she was trying to become the leader, which Agnes disapproved of her methods. I will not like tell you what she was doing because I don't want to spoil it for you, but basically she was trying to become the leader, and there were certain things that she had to do to be that, and Agnes was just, she just didn't understand her mom, and she hated her mom for what she was doing. And I feel like it was also portrayed very honestly, because I would guess that the child wouldn't understand it. I would guess that she would be critical and she would be too romantical and maybe romanticizing their certain things. So I really like the portrayal of these two women's relationship, how they're drawn to each other and how they're at the same time very different from each other, and it's very hard to accept each other for them. I also enjoyed the portrayal of the power struggle in the community, because at first the community starts with no leader, like they decided they will have no leader, and one of the rules is to reach a consensus, like the unanimous consensus. But later on there are people who want to be leaders, who just, you know, want to be the head of everybody, and everybody to consult with them and ask their permission for stuff, because they just enjoy that. And well, certain people enjoy, and for example Bea, the mother, she needed to become a leader to protect her daughter and to protect her husband. And you know, this like whole politics of the community was very interesting. I really enjoyed that aspect. Like this whole manipulation game was so interesting. Like the whole manipulation game on like Bea's part and manipulation game on Carl's part, I think it was very interesting, and I personally liked and enjoyed reading about that. So yeah, I guess those were like three things, right? So not two, those were like three things that I enjoyed in this book, which is portrayal of mother-daughter relationship and their characters, portray like the raw, the honest portrayal of human nature and the survival instinct of the community, and the portrayal of the power struggle in the community. The prevalent theme of the book was mother-daughter relationships, and that's what made this book interesting for me. That's what made this book for me. If it wasn't there, I'm sure I wouldn't like this book at all, because like I said, another thing which made me interested in this book was the examination of the environment and how would it affect the community. So that's how I heard this book to be described, and it just wasn't here. That's why this whole environment element, it's not there, it's not done well in my opinion. It's just very superficial, nothing interesting, no research on this topic. So that's why, yeah, if there wasn't the mother-daughter relationship, this book would not be interesting for me. But yeah, the portrayal of the community and the whole power struggle and how they survived, and relationship between mother-daughter and also between the community, I thought was done interesting. Overall, this book was interesting to read. It was very easy to read. I didn't have to push through, I didn't have to force myself into reading it. It was really easy, quite enjoyable, but at the same time it didn't stay with me. So guys, this is the end. These are my thoughts. You can tell that for me personally there are more negative things than positive. I expected more from this book. I very much wanted it to be about the environment and about the effects of climate change. And well, this book is about aftermath, right? But like effects of climate change, like how did climate change and, you know, affect, in the end, affect the society and people living in the society after everything happened. And it wasn't actually here, it wasn't. Apparently the only effect is that there are climate refugees, but actually things are not that bad. Like this, I feel like this really wasn't a very well thought through novel, even though it's interesting. It, like, the premise is interesting and the idea is very interesting, but it's just the execution for me fell flat. And yeah, I am more disappointed with this book than I am pleased with this. I am surprised that it's on a Booker shortlist. I really am surprised. I don't know. Let me know in the comments, what did you think about this book? What were your opinion about it? Do you agree with me, or maybe you disagree with me? Maybe again I have missed something. It's very much possible. I'm just one person and I often don't see some things, or I don't understand some things. So let me know in the comments what were your thoughts about this book. Next I will be reading The Shadow King by Maza Mangiste. And this is a book about Italian invasion in Ethiopia and a group of women who want to participate in defending their country. So that's what I know so far about this book. I will start reading it. I'm very excited, and I will talk to you about it maybe somewhere next week. So wish me luck. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. Please let me know your thoughts on Diane Cook's The New Wilderness. Let me know what you thought of it, if you liked it, if you didn't like it. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a very good day, and I hope you're staying safe, and I will see you soon in my next videos. Thank you very much. Bye.